Okay, everyone, this is my project-based learning presentation for our math presentation for parents. Okay, first thing I want you to do, I want you to think back to how you remember math class. That can be elementary, middle, or high school. I want you to really think about how exactly you would describe it to someone else. Take a moment and just think. Now, some of the things you might have come up with. Was math class boring? Maybe hard? Did it require a lot of memorization? Or have time tests? Do you remember receiving sheets upon sheets of questions that you had to answer? Or having hours of homework every single night? Do you remember your teacher saying that there was only one way to solve problems? Now, what if I were to tell you that there was a different way to learn? Take a moment and think. This alternate way of learning is called project-based learning, which is an approach to teaching that has students creating and problem-solving to complete a task. In traditional learning, you are told what you need to know, you memorize how to solve it, and the problem is assigned to illustrate how exactly you use that problem-solving method, that one correct method. In project-based learning or problem-based learning, a problem is assigned, typically a real-world problem, in which students need to identify what exactly they need to know. And based off of what they need to know, they need to learn and apply what they have already learned to solve those problems. Now, you might be asking yourself, why exactly is that important? It's important because it provides students with real-world application to the content they're learning, something that really connects them to what exactly they're learning, rather than making them question why they're learning something. It provides an opportunity for students to undergo deep learning in the content. So, rather than just answering the easiest questions every time, it allows students to dig deeper into the questions, find multiple ways of solving a problem, or applying that information to something important to them. And finally, it provides an opportunity for collaboration between students, which is one 21st century skill that is really important to a lot of job seekers today. It requires effective communication, self-directed learning, critical thinking and problem-solving skills, collaboration, and mastery of core academic content and academic mindsets. Now, characteristics of project-based learning. These are the things that you can guarantee you will see when you are entering a project-based learning environment, or when your students are entering a project-based learning environment. They can expect it to be collaborative. They'll be working with other students in the class. It'll be hands-on and inquiry-based, meaning the students are actively engaging with what they're trying to solve, and it will have real-world application. All three of these are prominent features that are promoted by Joe Bowler's book, Mathematical Mindsets, as different ways that teachers can encourage students to think deeply about mathematics. When you have a project-based learning activity, typically it starts with asking a driving question, something that's going to drive the student's entire process. The students are then going to inquire about it, to ask questions, and to figure out how to solve it. Students will have voice and choice, meaning that every student has a say in what they're learning, and they'll be able to have a choice as to how to solve it. There's not one correct method, like you may have been taught in school. Students learn as they need to know, meaning that they may not know everything that they need to know to actually solve a problem at the start of the process. They learn as they go, and they invent new ways of solving this. Students revise and reflect upon what they're doing, and try and figure out what the best method for actually solving a problem is, and they reflect upon why it is the best method. Students then present to an audience. The information that they're learning is not to be kept to themselves. It's to be shared out with the world. It's not that sheet of questions that you have to answer. It is really getting the information out and making sure everyone is aware of the math. Now, you might be wondering as a parent what the role of the teacher is going to be when their student is actively engaging in this work. A teacher's job in a project-based learning environment is to facilitate inquiry, to make the students begin questioning, to make the students curious, to help drive that curiosity. It's their job to scaffold the student learning, to make sure that they have something to build upon, to know where they're going at the end of this problem, to promote rigor. In project-based learning, students are working in a very rigorous environment. Students are working at a higher level and promoting deeper understanding than they do in a traditional math class. And finally, it's the role of the teacher to learn how to integrate technology into what they might be doing. I think back when I think of the role of the teacher in an inquiry-based or in a project-based learning environment, and I think of the book by Dave Burgess called Teach Like a Pirate. In Chapter 2, he discusses whether a teacher is a lifeguard or a swimmer. Characteristics of a teacher that is a lifeguard will typically be your traditional classroom setting, where teachers will be at the front of the classroom teaching and being the sole focus of student learning. Whereas in a project-based learning environment, a teacher is going to act more like a swimmer and is going to be working on the student's level, guiding the student towards how to solve a problem, rather than giving them the answers. As a parent, you're probably wondering what research supports these claims for project-based learning. One study done on an urban school district found that longitudinally, the mathematics performance of students that engaged in project-based learning is greater than those of the students that did not participate in project-based learning. Another study, also completed by Joe Bowler in 1999, found that 3 times as many project-based learning students achieved the highest possible grade on a national exam in Great Britain than the students at traditional school. Students in the PBL school were equally able to answer procedural questions and use formulas, but they were superior in answering applied conceptual problems, meaning that they had engaged more in deeper learning. 2 studies that were both done by Thomas in 2000, one of them done on Iowa schools and one of them done on Maine schools, both found that the schools experienced greater growth and greater change in a project-based learning environment. Now that you've learned a little bit about what exactly project-based learning is, I have a few examples of project-based learning. First one is XY marks the spot, in which they use a Cartesian plane to plot the location of geocached points. This mixes skills of mapping coordinates, reading maps, and landforms, and allows students to create a location of different items will be located. This provides students with basic information on global positioning systems, or GPS, which is often used in geocaching adventures. This activity specifically integrates math concepts, science concepts, and social studies concepts into one activity, one project. Another project was the Parkitecture project, which was done in California originally. It was a budgeting and planning project which integrated technology, specifically Google SketchUp, and math skills in budgeting, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, and planning where exactly you're going to use that budgeting. This project had students create a park, following guidelines on what exactly the park needed to have, and keeping a specific budget for their project, learning about money management. If you're interested in reading more on these projects, the links are located right here at the bottom. Finally, you're probably wondering how exactly you'll be able to help your students. In a project-based learning environment, it can be a little bit intimidating if you've never encountered it before. So as a parent with your child probably newly entering this kind of field, you're going to have a lot of patience and empathy for your students. Your students are probably going to come home and they might complain about being confused about what they're doing or not understanding. But you'll see throughout the year that they will gain skills in problem solving, and they'll understand the content more deeply than they would have before. You're going to have to be patient with the students, ask them guiding questions to help them through their learning. You're going to have to empathize with them. Tell them that you understand how frustrating it is. Maybe share with them experiences where you were frustrated when you had to problem solve through an activity. And you should actively engage with your students. Ask them questions about what they're doing. Make them realize that this activity is part of a larger plan than they know at the point where they're at. Thank you for listening to the presentation. If you're interested, I have my resources listed here. There are also many other resources available for understanding project-based learning, and I encourage you to go out and look up more. If you have any questions about project-based learning, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.